MaxMara is a company that is one of the greatest fashion houses for women, probably in the world. And it's got a very long and distinguished history of working with women designers and really making very durable, beautiful, tailored clothes for women of all ages. And they also, the family, the Maramotti family, have a fantastic collection which is situated in their old factory in Reggio Emilia. So they've always had a very long-standing commitment to contemporary art. I think they wanted to work with Britain, to have a higher presence in Britain and in London. And they came to us with an idea about celebrating in some way or helping women artists. And I think we were the natural choice because the Whitechapel Gallery has got a very long history of working with women artists way before they were really accepted within the canon. So we did the first show of Barbara Hepworth. We did amateur women's sketch club shows in the early 20th century. And from there on, I think there was an ongoing commitment. The very, very first major show of Eva Hesse, Frida Kahlo, Cindy Sherman, the list goes on right up to Isa Genskin and Elizabeth Payton, Sophie Cowell, Goshka Matsuga. We had three very distinctive bodies of work. Becky Beasley is someone who uses language, meaning, and in a way, almost a kind of surreal use of installation, but with very, very finely miniature works, in a sense, which have a narrative. Elizabeth Price, on the other hand, is really looking at the culture of the material world in this very exquisite series of films, a trilogy which is about collecting, about the world of objects and the sort of cultures that they describe. Andrea Büttner was distinctive from those two in that her work is far more eclectic. And what was very impressive about her practice was that it seemed to be as immersed in the world of filmmaking as it was in the world of painting. She has this very broad range of media. On the one hand, her work perhaps relates to expressionist wood blocks and to a kind of German tradition of expressionist figurative painting. I think we see in her work perhaps echoes of Kirchner or of the Blaue Reiter. On the other hand, she creates whole installations where she might press some clay into a corner of a room, so there's a sculptural component. And then finally, her films, there's an amazing film she made called Little Works, which is set in a convent. And what she does is she looks at the kind of parallels between the rituals of this very small community of women and the rituals of the art world itself. And so we found all of these different strategies very beguiling and very intriguing, and actually felt that her breadth of inquiry and also the fact that she seemed to be able to go back in time, but also suggest a new methodology. We found that very exciting. So it was a real struggle, and it took hours of deliberation, but finally we thought that Andrea could do something very remarkable with her time in Italy. We interview everybody. We tell them about the terms of the residency, which, by the way, is partly in the city, partly in the countryside. So they get 3 months in Rome, 3 months at the Pistoletto Foundation in Biella. And that's quite a big commitment. And the challenge is whether they can actually use the experience of being there to create a new work of art. So it's quite specific, the terms of it. And some of the ideas that Andrea was articulating, we just thought, actually, this could be very interesting to see what happens.
My plan is to do some research on the notion of poverty in arte povera and mirror that or compare that with notions of poverty in Franciscan and monastic theology. And but on a more practical level, I think I will draw and work on woodcuts and look for a new community to do a project with. I mean, I've only done one residency so far, and it was in Bavaria, and I started the technique of reverse glass painting, working on this technique of reverse glass painting when I was there, because it's like a technique that's a Bavarian folk technique and was taken up by Blaue Reiter, Blue Rider artists when they were living there in Bavaria. So it might be the case that something like this happens in Italy too, but I wouldn't know beforehand.
Although there are still issues for women artists, certainly I don't think they command the same prices in the marketplace. I think they have tremendous struggles really surviving in those key years after they've left art school. But where we had a commitment to working with a certain number of individuals, it was first and foremost because we felt that their work was at a level and represented a kind of really significant statement within their respective fields. So, for example, in terms of sculpture, we just thought no one has really looked at Genskin in depth, but actually she seems so relevant to so many different kinds of younger practitioners. And similarly with Elizabeth Peyton, what she was doing with painting, we felt was actually very fresh, and although it tapped into a very much longer tradition of painting, that she had dared to take it in quite an interesting direction. Sophie Cowell, her work with photography and performance, we also felt was very, very strong. One thing that's quite striking is that when museums only show men, it passes without comment, as if that's natural. But when museums show women, it passes as something remarkable or out of the ordinary, or some kind of special pleasing. And I think that's what we're kind of no longer interested in doing.